Hi, so we're here in South Somerset, England. I'm here with my Uncle Martin, who will be making a video about cider making, and he'll be demonstrating.
Hi there. Somerset and cider are quite synonymous, and the aim of this little movie is to show you a couple of simple machines so that you can make your own cider without having to go through a great deal of expense. The main machine is a scratching machine, which is for pulping the apples, and then there's also a press which is made out of quite simple pieces of metal which extracts the juice from the pulp and leads on to the final phase, which is, of course, is the fermentation. So we'll have a little look at the apples first. So now we're looking at some of the basic ingredients of cider. These little apples here, these are Dabinet. They look quite nice, red, a bit streaky. They don't taste very good, but they do make excellent cider just by themselves. Okay, and here we have Tom Putt. Again, it's an excellent cider apple, nice and red and streaky. Got all the right ingredients, but they don't taste very good to eat. Obviously good for cider. And finally, we've got these ugly little things. These are Woolbrook Pippin. They don't look very good at all, but actually they don't taste bad. So again, another excellent cider apple. Okay, so this is the scratching machine. This is the main machine for squashing the apples, turning them into pulp so that then they can be pressed. It's quite a simple machine. All that it consists of is 2 bits of chipboard. These are actually bits of old kitchen cabinets, and on this side of the machine we've got a motor down at the bottom which drives a large wheel. Now all of this has just come from an old washing machine, so nothing too complicated there. There's a little tiny tensioner here to keep the belt tension just right. The other features of this particular scratching machine is that it's got a little micro switch built into the electrical circuit, so that the rotor can only actually work when the lid is put down. Now when the lid goes down, you can hear the motors just started. When the lid goes down, it presses on this rod here which operates the micro switch. Now I'm just going to operate it without the lid closed so that you can see what happens with the rotor. Micro switch is pressed, motor starts, and the rotor rotates. And that's what does all of the work. To amplify the stainless steel clips that are on the rotor of this machine, the ones that I've used are actually clips for securing the verges of roof tiles. They just grab the hold of the tile to stop it lifting up in the wind. They're made out of stainless steel. They come with a little nail. Take the nail out and chuck it out, and then we'll use a stainless steel screw to secure them onto the face of the rotor. And then just to complete their function, I've bent the end tab up so that this sharp edge, this is the bit that does all of the work. When it bears down on the apple, it scrapes the apple into a pulp. So these are called verge roofing clips, stainless steel, won't corrode, and quite useful for your rotor. I'll just show you one other aspect of it. On the back of the machine, you can see there is the shaft which contains the armature, and it's mounted in a little roller bearing there, and the bearing is held by a retainer which is just a simple piece of wood with a slot cut in it and a pinch bolt there to grab the outside of the bearing, and then it's screwed to the side of the cabinet, and that makes the item fairly robust. It also keeps the bearing clear of the inside of the machine because the juice from the apples is quite acid, and you want to make sure that the bearings don't corrode. So that's the scratching machine. Let's flash it up and see how it works. And so now the final part of the process, just to show the machine operating. So we turn the machine on, the rotor's going around, and I've got the apples here just in some water just to give them a little bit of a clean. Chuck them in the top. You can put in about 10 or 12 at a go. And the rotor spins around, and out the bottom we've got the pulp. so we've made a bucket load of apple pulp. Take it out from underneath the machine. You can see that the apples are fairly well pulped into small pieces. The next thing to do is to make up a cheese. So here we have the apple pulp. It's just been put into a cheesecloth, which is inside a little wooden former, and then all that's required is to just fold over the cloth, keep it nice and tight so that you can make a nice bundle ready for pressing, which is the next stage. Okay, so we've got our new cheese here ready to go into the press. The previous cheese, you can see that it's squashed down to next to nothing, but I'll just put that on top of it just so that we get every last little drop of juice out. So the cheeses go onto a little frame here which has got an edge on it to contain the juices, and then a big bit of timber over the top. A couple of smaller pieces just go in here to make up the distance. Make sure it's all nice and central, and then we start to apply the pressure. So now you can see the juice is starting to come out of the cheese, and you get quite a lot of juice. And we just put a bit of pressure on and leave it there for a minute. Now I'll just talk about this machine here. This is quite a simple piece of equipment. The main frame is made out of a piece of scaffolding tube, 2-inch diameter tube, and down at the base we've just got a sawn off piece of rolled steel joist. It's about 4 inches by 4 inches. This frame was bent using a tube bender, and the jack actually came in the tube bender. It's a 12-ton hydraulic jack. And you can see the former up here, this piece of cast metal, is actually from the pipe bender and helps to keep the jack central on the main frame, which, as I said before, is just a big piece of scaffolding pipe. So it's quite a simple arrangement. There's a couple of return springs to make the jack ride up neatly on the frame, all made from bits of scrap metal and a pipe bender, which is quite simply available. The rest of it is just pieces of wood to make up the distance and to make sure that we get the most juice out of each cheese. Okay. So we've got our first 5 gallons of juice. It took us about 3 hours to make. So now what I'm going to do is just siphon out a little bit of juice, and then we'll check the specific gravity. So quick suck on the tube, open the tap. It's pretty murky looking at this stage. Quite a lot of apple pulp in it, but it'll clear much later when it ferments. So we'll just turn that off there. And the next thing to do is to check how sweet this juice is. And we can do that by measuring the specific gravity. So we put a sample into a tube and then use a hydrometer, which just measures how much sugar is in the liquid. And we're right in the middle of this orange part of the scale, and it looks as if it's coming out at about 1005. So that's a fair amount of sugar. That should equate to about, well, in fact on the hydrometer it will tell you, that will come out at about 6% alcohol if it all ferments, so that's quite nice. The final thing to do is to get the yeast started. So we'll save this bit of apple juice, and then we're using a cider yeast. A lot of people just use the natural yeast that you find on the skins of the apples, and that works quite well, but sometimes other bacteria which is not beneficial can start its fermentation process, and that will ruin all of your juice. So now we just leave that for about 15 minutes, and that gets the yeast fermenting and multiplying, and then we'll pitch it into the main container, and in a few days it should be bubbling away nicely. Thank you very much for watching our movie.